Hey y'all, welcome to the Team LocoFit Roundtable, hosted by me, Laurin Conlon, owner of Team LocoFit. Each week, I am joined by one of our coaches to dive headfirst into the nutrition, training, mindset, and coaching strategies we use with our clients. If you loved the show, please subscribe, leave us a review, tell a friend. You know the drill. And for more information about coaching, the programs we offer, and additional content, visit teamlocofit.com.
All right, y'all, and we are back, and I'm with Coach Sam. And
Hello.
We couldn't think of this phrase. So at the last show that I was at, Universe, I had a handful of people come up to me, which was amazing, and talk about how much they love the podcast, which I was so thankful for. And then a few people actually mentioned like the thing that I say in the intro, which I totally forgot because I don't re-record that. And I guess I'm like, you know the drill. And like people were literally coming up to me and saying that. And I was like, oh, this is so embarrassing. And we could not remember on the last podcast. So still laughing.
You know the drill.
But yeah, you know the drill. But yeah, so maybe I should re-record a new intro and just say something even weirder. But in any case, if you didn't listen to our last podcast, it was all about, well, we centered it around Thanksgiving, but really just holiday eating.
Yeah.
And, you know, because it is the week of Thanksgiving. And one thing we wanted to talk about and make it its own podcast was talking about food pushers, and not even just food pushers, but maybe people who don't understand your goals, right? So the holidays are typically a time where you get together with your family, or you get together maybe with friends you haven't seen in a long time. So these people might not be in your immediate circle. And whether you are a competitor in some type of sport, you know, whether you are just picking up health and fitness as this new thing and you're on this new journey, whatever it might look like, if you've changed your behaviors in any direction, people are going to notice. Mm-hmm. And people are going to judge, and people are going to ask questions. And sometimes it's with a very just benign, inquiry. Some people aren't trying to be mean. Some people are, like, that's the reality of that. And, you know, we just kind of want to talk about how to navigate some of those things, some of the conversations you could have with people who maybe just don't understand kind of what you're going through. Have you dealt with this in particular?
Oh yeah. I think the two things that really stick out to me when I think about like situations like that, it's the comments like, oh, of course you'd get that, or of course you'd do this because you're the health person. And it always stings a little bit because it's like, why are you commenting on what I'm eating? Because I'm not commenting on what you're eating. Like, I would never say to somebody, like I said to you, I would never be like, oh, of course you're getting 4 servings of macaroni and cheese. Like, I'm not doing that. So that's always kind of been something that's irritated me. And it's like that, I don't know what, I hate the term, but like the fit shaming kind of thing. Like it is. Yeah. That's always bothered me. Another thing is the way that has made me feel afterwards, and how self-conscious I am about what I'm choosing to eat, because I feel like people are looking at my plate and judging me for choosing to not have so much of something, or to choose a healthier option, or to have more turkey than I have pie. Like things like that in the past has really made me self-conscious. So I think this is an important thing to talk about, so that people can go into those situations and be confident in their choices and not worry about what people are thinking as much.
It actually goes the other way too, which is, that might be one of the weirdest ones to me. So say somebody, and this is very common for people who have been eating healthy, or let's say they are a physique competitor or whatever, right? When they first started, it was kind of like, oh, what are you doing? Why are you eating that? Oh, can you have that? Or, you know, whatever, like those kind of comments, right?
Yeah.
Then let's say you're not doing that anymore. Not that you're not doing that, but take the physique competitor, for example, right? Say your family is seeing you now go through this whole prep, your coworkers, your whatever, everybody's seeing you go through all this. And then now all of a sudden you want to enjoy Thanksgiving because you listened to our tips in the last podcast, and, you know, you ate modestly before, and, you know, you did all your normal healthy habits, and then you just decided, hey, it's Thanksgiving dinner. I want to enjoy this, and this is going to be more calories than I normally eat, but it's not that big of a deal. And then people are commenting on that. And that is so uncomfortable for people. You know, yeah. Oh, are you allowed to eat that now?
Yeah.
Are you sure you want to have that? I thought you couldn't have that. Or I thought you didn't eat like that. And then it's like,
listen.
Well,
yeah.
Funny thing about this is I was, dieting for 6 months, and now I'm using this as a nice high calorie meal. and all the other meals this week are going to be normal, right? But
Mm-hmm.
and it's always so interesting. These comments come up not just during the holidays, but during normal times as well.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with people where, you know, you're like the token fitness person, right? In your group, let's say you are, or not even just a token one, but the one that has more experience with that. And people have probably seen you eat really healthy. And then let's say you aren't eating like that for a meal. And then people are asking all these questions.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's like, all right, like reasonably speaking, I'm eating 4 to 5 meals a day. If 3 of those out of the entire week, I'm eating a little bit higher calorie, it's not that big of a deal. And I'm most likely eating those meals out, right? Like I'm going to eat my normal boring stuff by myself. And then if I'm going to have a meal out or a few that weekend, those are probably going to be my higher calorie meals. So people are going to see that and go, wait, aren't you like this person? And you're like, yeah, but you can do this every once in a while. This is the whole point. So it can be very frustrating on either end of the spectrum, right?
Yeah.
And the biggest thing here, and I've worked with so many clients who've struggled with this, with whether it's family or friends or whatever. And first and foremost, you have to just explain your goals to people. You know, especially if you're new to whatever you're doing, right? People are not going to understand what you're doing, and you can't expect them to understand it. You can't expect to just walk in and be like, I'm a physique competitor now, everybody should get it.
Yeah.
No, they're not. Or let's say you've been overweight, you know, your whole life, or you've just kind of eaten very high calorie foods and not really paid attention to your nutrition. And all of a sudden you come in and you go, I hired a diet coach and I'm really on top of my stuff. Like, what are you guys eating? Like, that's not good. Here's like, no, nobody's going to understand that or appreciate that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to explain to people, like, listen, here's what I'm doing. Here's why.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they still might not understand it, or they still might not really give a fuck.
Mm-hmm.
But at least you've explained it to where they go, okay, I'm going to stop kind of harassing this person.
Yeah.
Or maybe they go, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Like, thank you for telling me.
Yeah.
And I would say 8 out of 10 times when a client has that conversation with somebody, that person no longer harasses them about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just don't.
And that's the tough part too, is that like you shouldn't need to explain yourself because your actions are your choice. But especially when you're in those family situations, a lot of time like the food pushing comes from that place of love. That's like,
yeah,
let me show you like what I made for you. Like, come on, eat this. Oh, like just relax, have fun. And it's like, no, I'm relaxing and having fun, but this is how I'm doing it. And I'm happy with what I'm choosing to do. So thank you. And that's something I've always tried to have, is like that gratitude. Like, thank you for thinking of me, or thank you for suggesting that. But I really am happy with what I'm having right now. So I'm good. Thank you. Like, just move right along. And there are going to be those people though, that are going to make the shitty remarks and are going to say things like just all the things. I mean, like you said, on either side, they're going to say something, and it'll probably be the same people that will comment when you're dieting, that will comment when you're not. And those are the people where you have to have that boundary and that line, which is difficult to have, but to know that that is them. They are choosing to speak to me this way, and I have a choice on how I react to that. And I've definitely reacted both ways, where I've blown up and said things I shouldn't, and that was usually diet mode. But then there's other times where you could just turn the other way and like know that is probably, and I think you and Rick talked about this in your relationships podcast, like that is typically more about them than it is about you, because they're unhappy with their overall choices, so they're going to call you out on yours.
Exactly. And you know, that's where you have to have that balance of, hey, I'm going to explain this, but ultimately I'm doing what I want to do. Nobody needs to force feed you anything. You know, and like you said, the people who are food pushing are not doing it in a negative way. You know, they're not trying to be like, how do I make Sam feel really bad today? That's not their goal. The intention usually is like, hey, I want to show something. I want to share something with somebody, and food is a way that people do that. You know what I mean? And especially around the holidays, like holiday, like food and like comfort food is something that people really pride themselves on. You know, they're not like, oh, look at my tomato salad. They're like, thanks. You know, like that's not like, I mean, sure, but like that's not necessarily the same thing, right? So I think that it's really important to understand that when people are saying these things to you, it's typically not out of a negative or malicious place. They just might not understand where you're coming from, and especially if this is a big shift. If you've always been one way, now you're different, or you're trying to change, it's really important to understand, hey, okay, I haven't been doing this before. This
Yeah.
person is not meaning this in a negative way. Especially like, not to be, like, but especially if it is like an older, like a grandparent or something, they're probably not going to remember, right? Like there'll be conversations you have like the same conversation 10 times, right? And like, this is no different, right? Like, or like if they realize that you're doing one thing one time, they just like hang on to that, and then, and it's also people who don't see you all the time, right? So if it is family members who maybe don't see you, they only see you every Thanksgiving. And for the past 5 Thanksgivings, you've done things one way, and then you come in completely different one year, they're going to be like, what the hell? Right. And then ultimately, like, no matter what it is, you, as frustrating as it can be, because like I said, you've probably answered this question 100 times. You feel like you've been through this situation a million times. Why do you need to explain yourself, right? Try to be as rational about it, and try also to not be a dick about it, right? Yeah. If you come in, and this is, I always try to tell people, you need to do what you need to do and follow your goals and follow whatever feels best for you at that moment. But you also don't need to do that at the expense of others.
Yeah.
So if you come in and you want to eat a certain way, you can't come in and expect everybody else to eat the way that you're eating.
Yeah.
Or to change their habits or make it a big deal no, I was in a peak week during Thanksgiving one year. Now, luckily we prep food at my house. Like we host Thanksgiving. So it makes it substantially easier. Yeah. But I knew, okay, I'm going to have turkey, and then we already having green beans, and we were having some roasted potatoes, but I made mine separately. When we were making everything, I seasoned it, but I just didn't put any oil on it, put it in my own little pan. And I had the ability to do that because obviously it was at my house. And I simply plated it before I got to the table. I weighed it out and made sure I knew. And it was peak week, so I had like my salt, like everything was all perfect, right? I had the plate. I came to the table. I put all the rest of the food out with everybody else. They all grabbed their stuff, and I had my food already, and I just enjoyed the meal. Mm-hmm. I did it. So it is possible. I wasn't like, I'm on peak week, so I can't eat this food, you guys. Like, I gotta go make my own. No, here's my plate. Put it together. I ate it. It was fine. Yeah. And that's like the most extreme example I could think of, like literally weighing your salt. Okay. Yeah. And I had to do that because that is the situation that I was in, and it is what it is. And it was really no issue to me because that is a choice that I'm making. I'm getting on stage. I need to do this. There was no feelings behind it. It was just execution. But outside of those circumstances, like we said in the last class, unless you're like making weight for something or you have a competition, you can probably eat a little bit more, a little bit more flexibility. Yeah. But don't come in there and make people feel bad about themselves, about what they're eating. Right. And don't make it a big deal about what you're doing. Explain yourself. Hey, here's why I'm doing it. Okay. Keep moving. Come up with another conversation topic.
Yeah. And show, and it's a great opportunity, especially if you are somebody who's known as like the fitness person or, the nutrition person. Like, it's a great opportunity to show people that like you can enjoy meals like this in moderation, and to explain in a constructive way, and not say like, oh, I don't eat that stuff because it's shit. Like, that's going to make them feel bad. That's going to be being a dick. Yep. But if you could say like, I love this. I just don't, I'm full after this. Like, I'm full. Like, and I listen to my body and I'm good. Like, to explain it that way, and to not demonize things for people can help people see like, oh, I could be healthier and still eat like this. Like, oh, and it might open up somebody's eyes too, as opposed to being like, well, I don't want to be like that because that looks awful.
It's the moderation part is almost harder to explain, but it is so important, right? It is harder to explain like, hey, I know that I'm having this calorie dense meal right now, but the other meals that I eat during the week aren't like this, right? People are like, what? I don't understand. And then you're like, okay, how do I break this down? Normally this is what I'm eating, but sometimes occasionally I will get this, right? Yeah. And I think that it's a matter of just, again, explaining yourself. But only to a certain amount. Like, you don't need to continuously harp on it. Yeah. Hey, here's what I'm doing. Here are my new goals. Here's something. Whatever little tidbit that you want to give somebody, and then move past it. Bring up another conversation topic. Talk about something else. Talk to somebody else. Like, literally, there are so many ways to navigate a conversation. And I think a lot of the food pushing and the food guilt that comes from friends and family is people who don't know how to navigate conversations in general, right?
Yeah.
And I'm somebody who's very extroverted, very good at having conversations. So I sometimes take this for granted, but this is something that I have to work on with clients. Like, hey, you can't stay hung up on this.
Yeah.
Somebody asked you about this, they're not going to sleep tonight thinking about it. They don't care. You care though. So we need to move past this, right? Yeah. Somebody brings this up, don't take it as a personal offense. Oh, they don't understand my goals. They don't care about me. No, they just don't understand it. Nor do they really care. Nor should they care. It's not their goals, right? So if somebody is saying these things to you, you need to take it with a grain of salt, make a moderate explanation, and move forward. And that's just kind of how you can navigate any conversation that's uncomfortable. Like, get your point in there and then move somewhere else if you don't want to continue it,
Yeah.
And I think that it's just really important to realize that the people are not doing this for any other reason besides they're just genuinely curious. Now, again, there are some times where, and this again particularly comes back to the competitor, or this particularly comes back to like if somebody has a family who eats really unhealthfully, and then you're trying to make a change. So anytime it's like an extreme difference, there are going to be people who like harp on you, like, why are you doing this? This is like the competitor example, particularly like, oh, you just look like a skeleton. You're like,
yeah,
I don't
now, but
like,
yeah,
sure, maybe for a few weeks, it's just, so it can be really hard. And there's some people who just, will harp on that. And you're like, God, could you give it a break? Like, could you just ever try to understand what I'm doing? Mm-hmm. And I've worked with some people who, honestly, I've worked with them for a very long time, and their families or whoever just don't get it, and it's like, listen, you can't hold that personally. They're doing this because they think that they're trying to help you. They think they're trying to help the situation. They're not, but they're trying. So you just have to kind of listen and then just let it go, like just let it roll off. And I get it, it's hard. But just one of the big things here with any type of, like I said, food pushing or food guilt is to recognize that it's not something that you should take super personally. Mm-hmm. And it's not something that other person is continuously thinking about for days on end.
Right. It kind of reminds me of like the whole like gym intimidation thing, where when people first start going to a gym or going to a new gym and they're like, I just feel like everybody's looking at me and judging me. And it's like, no one cares about you, because they're thinking similar thoughts. Like, are they watching me? Like, am I doing this wrong? Like, you have no idea what's going on in somebody's head. So like, there's no point in trying to control that or trying to like think about it and marinate on it. It's have that conversation, explain yourself, and then they're going to take from that whatever they're going to take from that. All you can do is, and like if you've made a change, like you probably know you're going to have this conversation. So it's worth like thinking about it ahead of time. Like if somebody comments on my diet, like what am I going to say? How do I explain myself? What are my goals? I know what my goals are. So how can I explain this in a productive way? And be prepared for that, and then be prepared to move on from that. And like I said, I remember those meals when and this was at a time when I definitely didn't have as good of a relationship with food as I do now. And I would, only eat the vegetables and only eat the turkey. And, I was very restricted even at those meals. So I knew that I wasn't being a good like example, and that I wasn't in a good place. So it made me more self-conscious. Right. But now I mind my own business. I eat my food. I enjoy my food, and I don't get as many of the comments. And I don't think that people are thinking about me, because I'm not thinking about, are they thinking about me? So being able to just like say your piece, move on, eat your food, mind your business, and really truly, like that's a big thing too. Like really mind your business. Like we talked about, don't be a dick. Don't be commenting on other people's food, especially if you don't want that thrown back at you.
Yeah, if you're going to do that, then fully expect it to come back, and don't be like, oh, well, why would somebody comment about that if you've already just harassed somebody for the past, 10 minutes about their choices. It doesn't matter. Now, if somebody's asking you for help, different conversation. If you have been changing your life and changing your eating habits and all that, somebody's asking you questions, that's a really good time to engage with them and to like share what you've been doing. Doesn't mean it's what they need to be doing, but you can be like, hey, like, I've been like eating protein 3 meals a day. Like this is like a really big like life changer for me.
Yeah.
I've been drinking water, like, whatever. And people are going to comment. They're going to make these, they might be excited about what you're doing. So don't always take it as a negative thing either. Like if somebody's like, why are you eating that? Don't automatically think it's because they're judging you. Maybe they're just want to know for themselves too. Like, why would somebody choose that? Yeah. That's another idea, right? Like, so there's a lot of reasons why somebody would, again, try to talk to you about what you're eating or what you're doing. And it's, sometimes it is from a not great place, but a lot of times it really is just either miscommunication, misunderstanding, curiosity, and then you just need to handle it that way. And don't ultimately, like you said, don't feel bad. And I think this just comes from, people who are maybe a little bit more reserved or a little bit less aggressive. They're very agreeable. They're just kind of like, oh, somebody was judging me on that. Okay, I guess I'll eat it. Or like if somebody's like, hey, do you want a third piece of pie? You're like, oh, they asked me. Sure. Like, no, make the decision. Do you want it or do you not? Like, you don't need to say yes because somebody's offering it. If you want it, have it. Own that decision. There's nothing more powerful than owning a decision that you want to make. And I think that's where people really struggle with food in general, where they go, oh, I'm on a vacation. Like, I can't control what I'm eating. No. You're fully in control of what you're eating. You're choosing not to control what you're eating. That's also fine. If you said, I'm going to go on a vacation, I am not looking at a weight. I'm going to eat whatever I want and I'm going to have fun. I'm going to come back. It's going to be fine. That is very different than saying, I just got there. I don't know what happened. I didn't work out. I ate whatever I wanted. I just couldn't stop myself. You could have literally eaten the same calories, but your body would have responded differently. And your mental space for those weeks afterwards would be vastly different. So it's really important to whatever decision that you're trying to make, you just have to own it and just go with that and don't second guess it. And like I said, on the podcast before this, we really talked about a lot of tips for just kind of holiday eating in general that you guys might find useful. But yeah, don't feel bad. Do whatever that, hit whatever goals you need to hit, abide by whatever principles that you're trying to abide by. Just don't be a dick about it.
And I had a question as you brought that up. Someone says, I'll have a third piece of pie and you go with it. I think a lot of times in social situations, people use the excuse, and sometimes it's just they don't have the resiliency built up, sure, but oftentimes it comes off as an excuse. Well, everybody else was eating and drinking, and I just couldn't not, and so I drank it and I ate and I didn't stick to my goals for the day. Like, what do you say in that situation, and how do you? I mean, I know what I would say, but I'm just curious what you would say. Like, how do you move past that?
So if it already happened, it happened. We can't stay hung up on this, but we need to learn. Okay, we need to dissect why. Right? That is the coaching response to everything. Okay, well, why did that happen? Why do you feel like this? Why did you feel like there was you had no control or no choice over this? Is that actually how you felt, or is that how you've been conditioned to think about these kinds of things? And we need to think about, okay, how in other situations do you handle stuff? Is this how you handle every situation, or is it only food? Right? Because if it's every situation, that's going to be a little bit more pervasive. If it's just food, we can put like something in there to break that habit. But if it's everywhere, we're really going to need to work on that. Okay, you fold under social pressure. Somebody asks you for something, you don't say no. Or not even just saying no, you don't put up boundaries, which is really more of the thing like, hey, and this is something that I actually had to learn as a leader on a team as well. And I'm still learning that. It's very different when you do things only on your own versus with other people. And when I first started, I'd be like, hey, like, let's do this. Or like, I need to have this done. And then I would be like, well, why wasn't it done in 2 days? I never asked for it to be done in 2 days, but it'd be done a week later. And it seems so simple, but if I didn't ask for that, or I didn't put a boundary on that, hey, I need this done by Friday at 2:00. Okay, everybody knows now what's going on. Pretty straightforward. Needs to be done by Friday at 2 p.m. Instead of done. That could be Thursday, that could be Sunday. Like, when is this going to happen? Right. So the same thing goes for this, like social pressures or not putting up boundaries. Like, you need to go into that and tell yourself, okay, I'm going to go have dessert. But if you know every time that you're with say you're with a certain group of friends and you know that you're always going to they always want to have dessert. You know that you always just say, whatever, doesn't matter what you ate earlier, doesn't matter how much you drink, you're always going to have dessert with them. You need to put some kind of a boundary on yourself. Either, you know what, I maybe don't need that dessert, or I'm going to get this and I'm going to split it with somebody, or I'm going to, limit myself to one thing. Same thing goes for alcohol. If you know that you're going out with a group of people and you always get hammered and you're trying not to do that. Okay, I know that when we go out, this is a situation that I put myself in. I need to set a boundary. I'm only going to order 3 drinks. So you need to kind of know going into the situation what kind of boundary you need to set up, because there is no excuse. Yeah, every once in a while that happens. Oh, shit happens. I get it. Yeah. I'm not trying to say that we're like these perfect, methodical machines. It's not how it works. But 9 times out of 10, I'd rather somebody execute properly, just so that, again, it doesn't kind of snowball into these other things, because, I couldn't say no, or I just, I had to have it with the social pressure. Well, that happens a lot, and that happens repeatedly. And that doesn't just happen with food, that happens with your relationships, and that happens with your work life, and that happens with just how you communicate with everybody. So it's really important to understand, why do I do this? Is it the group of people? Is it always like a certain one thing? And then just kind of go from there.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
So no perfect answer as usual, but that's just kind of how all this stuff works. And, you know, if anybody ever gives, usually the test, the litmus test for me is when like somebody has like a perfect response for something. You're kind of like, that's not gonna work.
That's not true. Yeah.
That's not gonna work. Like that might work every once in a while.
Yeah.
You know, or like in the beginning of something, but that's not gonna always work. You really need to figure out why is a behavior happening and repeating itself.
Yeah.
Like I said, everybody does shit every once in a while. But if that same thing happened 3 weeks in a row, and then 3 weeks turns into a year, well, we need to address it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
before the year happens, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you're right too. I mean, you are right, but there's a lot of reasons why you can have that, like, it's not even like a lack of willpower, but just let those boundaries fall. And that can be, you know, self-sabotage. That can be that all or nothing thinking where it's like, oh, I said I wasn't going to do this, but then I had one, so screw it, I'm going to have all of them. And like everybody else was doing it, so I just thought whatever. And it is really breaking down, like, why are you folding under that social pressure? Or like what, like you said, is it all the time? Is it just this one time? Is it when you're having a bad day, or you've had like X happen, or you've talked to a certain person beforehand? Like there's a lot of different factors that can lead into that, like the lowering of our resiliency and the lowering of our mental bandwidth to be able to say no, to be able to say, this is what I'm doing. But we won't know that until we talk about it and figure it out. And so that's where you said, like, honesty needs to be, like, we need to be honest about it. It can't be this perfect excuse or perfect story. Like, if you're going to get past it, let's talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't just, it's not an easy fix. And you shouldn't expect it to be an easy fix. And you do need to figure out whether it's the scenario or the person or the situation, whatever it is, you need to figure that out, because it's most likely not just playing out in your life with food, most likely playing out in your life with other things as well, and potentially even more detrimental things. So I think that's all I got for that.
Yeah, so I was a whole side tangent just on.
No, that was, I mean, it all goes together. So this is a really, of course, like I said, pervasive thing just in everybody's life, but particularly with the holidays coming up in these next 6 weeks of just kind of like every social event, every friend, like holiday party, work party, family dinner, whatever it might be, there's going to be a lot of this happening. So, you know, I think the question that you asked was really, really important. And that kind of ties all of this together. If you find yourself going into these habits and not having these boundaries and not having any resiliency, why? Is it the people you're with? Is it the situation you put yourself in earlier? Is it, you know, who you talk to, what you, like, there's so many reasons why, and every reason is going to be different, and it's going to be valid for you individually. What might, you know, set me off will not do that to you, and vice versa. So you need to figure out what that is for yourself. If you are working with a coach, be very open about that so you guys can figure that out. And yeah, that's all we got. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you have any other questions or want to check out programs, articles, other podcasts, et cetera, you can go to teamlocofit.com. You can also apply for coaching on there, and we are accepting clients at this time. So thank you guys for tuning in, and happy Thanksgiving. Wow, that was a really loud clap. Okay. Yeah, I won't do that anymore. I hope you guys have an awesome Thanksgiving and enjoy yourselves.
Bye.